Welcome to a quick tip of Glad You Asked Today. Pardon, John Lopez and I, we're excited about a new episode that actually we can be seen on screen. This is the first for us now.
This is the first
we
time
actually have to move and do
screen,
things and
act
talk
we're,
with our hands and everything else.
And we're in the same place at the same time for a change.
Where have you been, John Lopez?
I'm just coming back from St. Louis.
Wow, I hear it's great out there. There's an arch and everything. There's basketball out there?
I took some great photos of the arch, actually. There was some great basketball. The Elite 100, Nike's event. I got to photograph the top 15 and 16-year-olds in the country.
That sounds amazing. You know where I was? I was in New York City. I didn't go anywhere.
NYC.
I have not been to an airport in 3 weeks.
Wow.
It's an amazing feeling.
That's
an amazing
that's a streak.
feeling.
That might be a record.
I'm loving that life. Hey, let's get to the quick tips just for today.
Yes, indeed.
We're going to show you a couple things. We've been stuck on this screen here, but because you can see us now, this is all new to us, so I'm a little overwhelmed by this. So I wanted to share with you quickly here's something that I did a long time ago. This is like proof that you can do really bad by yourself. But this is an image of me doing shots, and I started playing with this idea of how to actually do fading that I actually learned from this guy, Leo Chang. Here's Leo Chang in a picture here. Say hi to Leo. He looked kind of weird there, but he actually looks no better now. But I was doing shoes in Japan, and I was rendering things, and I did all the basics, the line art. And he sent me a file that was his rendering. And if you know Leo Chang does everything like 112% no matter what. But what he did is, the first time I saw this, and I had to steal it immediately, is he created a file with all these offsets just to get the shading. So, and just have like red in the back. That way, what you could do is, and I'll move it back, what you could do is then change out the color and keep the shading. So that was the tip I learned. So now what I do is I actually don't use all the little bars that he did. And he probably doesn't do it now because he pays like 12 interns and 4 people who work for him to do any of this at all. But I just create a gradient, create it in monotones to get the shading, and then I put the color behind or on top, depending on how I'm working with it. And then I can flip out the colors to be whatever I want and keep the rendering quality no matter how it works. So that's what I wanted to share today. John Lopez, what do you want to share with us?
So today I wanted to talk something briefly about actually using your camera. Obviously, to create an image, you need a camera. I have mine here with me. This is my camera. This is the
our video. We can share that.
That's right. I can show you. So it doesn't have a lens. It's just a body. It's the Canon 1DX Mark II. Canon does not pay me. I'm not here to promote their gear. I do love this camera.
But if you want to send us some cameras, I need some cameras.
Yeah. Canon, if you're watching, please, by all means, this episode could be sponsored by
Fuji,
you. All of y'all.
Skechers, whoever.
Whatever. Anyway, a lot of people are intimidated by shooting in manual mode. You got to manage the ISO, you got to manage the shutter speed, you got to manage the aperture. How do you deal with all of that? So without going into full automatic mode, which I strongly discourage anyone from doing, there's other semi-automatic modes that can help you get the job done. So I'll show you on the screen here, if I can find it on Jeff's.
All the way
brilliantly.
There we go.
So there's a mode called aperture priority. Aperture priority mode, as it says here by Google, they're actually correct. It allows you to control the aperture that you want to shoot at. So let's say
rewind. I'm a little bit trying to. Aperture is.
What is aperture? Glad you asked. Aperture is your f-stop, right? So it's the it controls the depth of field or the lack thereof based on the setting that you choose, and it actually works in reverse. So big aperture is small number. Small aperture is big number. So what that means is the aperture, think of it as the window of your camera, and if I'm shooting at f22, that's a huge window. I'm sorry, it's a tiny window. F22 is the tiniest possible window. If I'm shooting at f1.2, that's a huge window, letting in more light. So it affects how much light is able to actually hit your sensor.
And the light affects depth of field?
The size of the window is affecting the depth of the field. So imagine it actually works on a plane. So 1.2 plane is like razor thin, super, super thin. Whereas f16 is super wide. Sometimes you can see if I shot a portrait of somebody's face, my nose could be sharp and my eye could be blurred. That's how shallow the depth of field is at something like 1.2. So anyhow, managing all of these things can be a pain. Let's say you really want to shoot at f2.8 and you don't want to deal with what the shutter speed would have to be or anything else. So what you do is put your camera in aperture priority mode or AV, and I'll show you what it looks like. If you come in here, it says AV mode on the dial there. Most of them have it. Sometimes it might just be A. This is just some examples here. Again, courtesy of Google. Thank you. And sometimes they're digital. So depending on the camera that you're using, you might have to kind of go into the modes and kind of move around to find it. Anyway, once you choose this, you're telling the camera, I'm going to dictate what the aperture will be. You figure everything else out. And so that means that from one shot to the next, your camera is going to be dictating what the shutter speed is going to be. This is helpful in cases where, for example, you're outside and it's cloudy, but then sunny and then cloudy, and you're in the shadow, you're out in the sun, and you're bouncing around. If you're shooting in manual mode, you have to figure that out on your own. You have to change the dials to adjust to the shade. If you're shooting in aperture priority mode, the camera is already doing that for you. So that's just a quick tip for you.
So I shouldn't be using auto, is what you're telling me.
You should never use auto. Ever.
I don't use auto anymore because I have a friend named John Lopez who shames me for using auto and will yell at me. So now I understand what aperture is, though I have to ask every other week. What is that again? Because I wasn't asking because I'm glad you asked. I was asking because I needed to know.
One last thing about being in aperture priority mode. So here, the aperture is at 3.2. ISO is set to 200, which is fine. If we are in aperture priority mode, which is here you see by the AV, the shutter speed will be changing. Then you have this here. This is going to be your exposure compensation. So now, right now, the dot is in the middle. It's centered at 0. So exactly based on what pure gray, 50% gray is, the camera will decide where that belongs. If you decide, hey, I actually want this silhouette look, or I want it to be a little bit brighter, you can actually change this to be +1. That'd be 1 stop brighter, or 2 stops brighter, or 3 stops brighter. Or you can go in the other direction and make it 1 stop darker. And so what you're saying is, I still want to stay at f3.2, and I want you to figure out the shutter speed, but I actually want the image to be a little bit darker. Because maybe you're going for a silhouette look where you want the sky and the to be perfectly blue and the clouds to be properly exposed, whereas you have maybe people walking in the foreground who are going to be just silhouetted. So the exposure compensation knob is a great way to do that. And sometimes it's a dial on the back of the camera. Sometimes, again, depending on the camera you're using, it to be controlled digitally. So there's my quick tip for you today. Aperture priority mode is a great way to go and a much better alternative than full-out automatic.
And again, if you have questions, continue to hit us up at gladyouasked.today. Say that 5 times fast.
Yeah, I know. Yo@gladyouasked.today. That's us.
All right. Appreciate it. John will now hit the keys to shut it down.
Peace.